In a forgotten village nestled between jagged cliffs and mist-draped forests, strange whispers traveled with the wind. The village, known only to a few as Dirkle, did not exist on any map, nor did it welcome the conveniences of the modern world. There was no electricity, no internet, not even paved roads, only narrow, winding dirt paths that led in and out of silence. The people of Dirkle lived by the old ways, farming with their hands, praying to unseen gods, and fearing things they couldn't explain. But above all, there was one thing they never spoke about openly: the stone statues, lining the northern edge of the village, right where the trees grew too thick for light to pass, stood a series of ancient stone figures. Each statue stood roughly 6 feet tall, sculpted to resemble human beings, but their faces were twisted in bizarre, grotesque expressions. Some had their mouths stretched open as if screaming, others seemed to be laughing, and some bore blank, haunting stares that followed you even when you closed your eyes. No one in Dirkle knew who had carved them. They had always been there, as far back as stories could go. Elder Mina, the oldest living soul in the village, often sat by the fire with children gathered around her, whispering. "The statues don't sleep at night, they walk." Her voice would tremble as she spoke, not from age, but fear. "They watch us. They count our steps. And when the moon rises red, they choose one of us." The children would laugh nervously. The adults would scold her gently. "Don't fill their heads with fear," they'd say. But deep down, everyone knew something was wrong with those statues, because each morning, the statues were never in the same place they had been the night before. The villagers tried to rationalize it. Perhaps it was the mist, or maybe someone was playing tricks. But the truth was, no one dared to go near the statues after dark. No one, except the foolish or the cursed. And then came Aiden, a city boy. Aiden had been sent to Dirkle by his estranged uncle, a reclusive scholar who lived on the outskirts of the village. Aiden had never seen his uncle before. He had only heard that the man had no family of his own, no friends, and lived in a house filled with books and shadows. The letter that summoned Aiden was cryptic. "Come before the blood moon. There is something you must see before it's too late." It was signed with a trembling hand. Uncle Harrow. The villagers didn't trust outsiders. When Aiden arrived with his backpack and curiosity, they looked at him with thin smiles and watchful eyes. But no one stopped him. No one warned him. No one told him what happened to those who came too close to the statues. His uncle's house was a crooked wooden cabin, nestled near the edge of the forest where the trees whispered louder than the wind. Aiden found the door unlocked. Inside, he was met not with a greeting, but with silence. Dust-covered books lined every wall. Candles had melted down to stubs, and a smell of old stone lingered in the air. And then he saw it. A journal, left open on the desk. The ink was still fresh. They move, not by will, not by curse, but by hunger. The villagers don't speak of it. They made a pact. They feed the forest once a year, before the statues choose for themselves. If I'm gone, it means they've come early. Don't trust the girl with the red scarf. Aiden stepped back, heart pounding. Who was the girl with the red scarf? What did feeding the forest mean? Suddenly, a soft knock echoed on the door. He turned slowly. Standing outside was a girl, no older than him, maybe 17, with long black hair, pale skin, and a bright red scarf around her neck. "Hi," she said with a soft voice. "I'm Alara. You must be Aiden." He didn't answer. He couldn't. The words from the journal burned in his mind. Don't trust the girl with the red scarf. But something about her eyes, they weren't threatening. They were sad, tired, like someone carrying a weight too heavy for her age. "I know why you've come," she said, stepping inside. "Your uncle. He wasn't mad, you know. He just knew too much." And just like that, Aiden was pulled into a mystery darker and deeper than he had ever imagined. Alara explained what the village had never dared to say aloud. That once every year, on the night of the red moon, the stone statues moved, not just inches or feet, but across great distances. They searched, they hunted, they whispered names no one could hear, and chose one unlucky soul to take into the forest. That soul was never seen again. The villagers knew. They always knew. But they stayed silent. In return for their silence, the statues didn't touch their homes. Only the outsiders, or the ones who tried to speak. Aiden refused to believe it. Statues don't walk. It's impossible. Alara only smiled. Then come see for yourself. Tonight. And that night, under the dim red glow of a full moon, Aiden followed her. They walked past the last house in the village, past the broken fence that no one ever mended, into the woods where the shadows seemed to bend around them. And there they stood, the statues, still, silent, watching. Alara pointed at the ground. Do you see their feet? Aiden leaned closer. The soil beneath the statues was disturbed. Drag marks, footprints, crushed leaves. Not just signs of someone placing the statues, but of something moving them. Alara, Aiden whispered. Why are you showing me this? She looked at him, eyes glistening. Because tonight, they'll choose again. And then the statues moved, slowly. Deliberately, point one turned its head. Another took a step. A third raised an arm, pointing directly at Aiden. He wanted to scream, but his voice was gone. Alara grabbed his hand. Run. They ran. Through trees that reached like claws. Through fog that swallowed sound. Behind them, the ground shook. With every slow, deliberate step of stone feet, they reached the village, panting, heartbeats like drums in their ears. But something was wrong. The village was emptied, and no lights. No sounds. No people. Aiden turned to Alara, confused. She didn't meet his gaze. I'm sorry, she whispered. And then he heard it, stone scraping against wood. The statues were already there. Aiden stood frozen, the hair on the back of his neck rising like frost. The statues, once far behind in the forest, were now standing silently in the center of the village square, where just hours ago, children had played and smoke had risen from chimneys. Now, there was only stillness. And stone, dozens of statues. Some he recognized from the forest, others new. And horrifyingly, some of these new statues looked eerily familiar. Their faces, that he had seen those faces in the village earlier. The baker with the crooked smile. The old man who had nodded to him at the well. The girl who had dropped a basket of apples. Now they were stone. Aiden backed away, heart thundering. Alara, he gasped. What is happening? But Alara wasn't beside him anymore. She stood at the center of the square, facing the statues with her hands raised, like she was addressing them. Alara? His voice cracked, and then she turned, tears streaking her cheeks. I didn't want to, she whispered. I fought it. Every year, they demand one, and this year, they wanted him. Your uncle. But he refused to be taken. She swallowed. Hard. They came early. He tried to warn you. But now they need someone. No, Aiden shook his head. You brought me here to offer me to them? I didn't have a choice, she cried. If no one is offered, they will take the entire village. Everyone. I've seen it happen. Once, years ago, a girl ran. And the next morning, the entire west side of Dirkle was turned to stone. Every man, woman, child. Aiden stared at her, his breath shallow. You said you wanted to help me. I did, she whispered. But I can't fight them. None of us can. They are older than time. And they never forget a promise. The statues began to move again, slowly, rhythmically, in a circular pattern, surrounding Aiden like vultures in a dance. He looked around desperately. There had to be a way out. He ran, past the statue that looked like the butcher, past the silent well, past the church bell tower, into the alleyways, breath sharp in his chest. But every turn brought him back to the square. The village itself had changed. The streets weren't where they were before. Buildings had shifted. Doors vanished. It was like the statues weren't just chasing him. They were warping the world around him. Panic gripped his chest. He heard a voice, his uncle's voice, in his memory. The girl with the red scarf. She's the key. They bound her so long ago. She isn't free, but she remembers. And if you can get her to remember what she once was, they'll lose control. Aiden turned and rushed back to Alara. She stood, trembling, eyes distant, surrounded by the statues like a puppet master losing her strings. Alara, he said, breathless. This isn't you. You weren't always like this. You're not their servant. She flinched. Alara, who were you before the scarf? Something in her expression cracked. I don't remember. Yes, you do. You were a child here once. You had a sister. You used to sing near the stream. You had a dog named Caro. Don't you remember the dog who barked every time the statues came near? Her lips parted. I remember. Caro, her hands began to shake. He ran at them, barked all night. Then he turned to stone. You weren't part of them. You were one of us. She fell to her knees. The scarf around her neck began to darken, no longer red, but deep black, like ink soaking into cloth. The scarf. It binds me. I was the first. The very first they took. Aiden moved closer, his voice calm but urgent. Then break it. I can't. Only one thing can truth. She looked up at him, eyes hollow. Tell me the truth of why I brought you here. Aiden knelt before her. You didn't bring me here to die. You brought me here because you wanted someone to remember who you were. Because you're tired of being their voice. Because you wanted to be free. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She reached up, trembling, and untied the scarf. The moment it slipped from her neck, the world around them screamed. The statues shrieked, not with mouths, but with stone cracking like thunder. Their bodies shook. Some split open down the middle. Others collapsed into dust. One by one, they shattered, their screams swallowed by the rising wind. The sky above them turned gray. The moon lost its red color. The silence that followed was so absolute it pressed into their ears like a weight. And then the village breathed again. Doors creaked open. Lights flickered back to life. The baker stumbled out of his home, rubbing his eyes. Children cried for their mothers. The church bell rang, not from fear, but to mark a morning that had finally come. The statues were gone. All of them. Alara stood slowly. The scarf lay at her feet, now no more than ash. I can't stay, she said softly. My soul has waited too long. But now I can go free. Aiden looked at her, heart heavy. Thank you for not letting me be next. She smiled faintly. No, thank you for reminding me who I was. As the sun rose, Alara faded, her form dissolving into tiny points of golden light that floated upward, scattering into the breeze like seeds of forgotten memories. Aiden remained in Durkle for one more night. The next morning, he packed his things and walked the dirt road out of the village. No one stopped him. No one asked where he was going. But as he crossed the forest edge, something caught his eye. Just beyond the trees, barely visible in the morning mist, one statue stood alone. Its face was calm, watching, but unmoving for now.